Welcome to B2B Sales Trends, the podcast dedicated to sales leaders in the B2B space, where we share conversations about innovative and successful sales transformations to keep you up to date on the latest trends. This podcast is brought to you by Global Performance Group.
Welcome yet to another fabulous episode to the B2B Sales Trends podcast, the show that brings you hacks, tips, thought leadership to the topic of B2B selling, my lovely people. My name is Kendlbacher, and today's episode is about how we build sales teams for the modern buyers. And our expert for the session is Sonia Bizier. And Sonia is the VP of Sales at Hexagon. Welcome to the B2B Sales Trends podcast, Sonia.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to engage in this conversation.
Fabulous. To kick this off with, Sonia, give us a little bit of an intro about yourself, your background, and what excites you most about the current state of sales.
Mm-hmm. So I have been a career salesperson for the last 31 years. I have been an individual contributor, and I've carried a lot of different sales leadership roles throughout my career. And I'm just as passionate about selling today than I was 31 years ago. But one has to address that sales has gone through a massive transformation over the last 31 years. So for me, I'm constantly learning something new, and I would describe myself as a sales lifelong learner. And what is exciting me the most about sales today in this day and age is bringing in the concept of neuroscience to high performance. And if we start to think of sales as a high performance sports, and the sales teams we're leading are corporate athletes, it starts to change the paradigm of how we build teams, how we enable teams, and really kind of bringing in the neuroscience element as a tool in my toolbox to transform organizations. And for me, there is a need for courageous leadership to forge new paths for our sales teams, and that will really help us resonate and be resonant with our buyers if we can kind of lead our teams through this transformation. And I'm really excited about the opportunity to be leading a sales organization at this point in my career.
Well, I'm looking forward to diving a little bit deeper into your thoughts on how to bring neuroscience to high performance. I think it's a fascinating topic. Let's park that for a second and get back to it at the later stage of this podcast. I want to start this off with talking a little bit about what works. I mean, you've said that, you've been in this business for 31 years or in sales for 31 years, and stuff has changed since then, right? Sales strategies that work 10 or 20 years ago often or most of the times these days fall short, right? And what are some of the biggest shifts in especially buying behavior that have made these older approaches less effective in your opinion?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good question. I think, we're in an age where you have more sophisticated buyers who are well educated in what they think they need. Information is everywhere at their disposal. However, I think what has changed for a sales executive is how do you take that information, contextualize it, curate it, and provoke thought for your buyers. Because we've seen with the world of AI, yes, there's a lot of data coming our way, but how do you contextualize and curate that data so that you're making the right decisions at the right time? And we can really start to think about ourselves as sales executives as thought partners to the buyers we're working with, and our role is to provoke thought through asking powerful questions and making them think differently about how they're doing things today. And just as I am a sales leader thinking deeply about how am I going to, transform this organization and let go of some of the biases that I have on, well, this is how I've always done it. Those playbooks don't work. We need to think about how do we adapt and how do we build new mental models in this world of selling. And I'm seeing organizations really get trapped and they want to keep the old, right? And then they want to, introduce all this new. And at some point, you need to let go of the security blanket that you have always, that's been tried and true, right? The tried and true security blanket of the past isn't going to help you perform at an elite level in 2025. The environment has changed. You have AI, you have, a very massive tech stack that you can lean on. And it means a mind shift. It means a change of mindset and how we approach this world of selling.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I truly believe in what you said, that it has to be a transformation of sales organizations. And I think you brought up an interesting point that really sort of illustrates it for our listeners, which is back in the days, people, the good salespeople ask questions, right?
Yeah.
That was a good thing, understanding what the prospect or the buyer wants or needs, and that's a good thing. But that behavior has changed in buying because they're much more educated. They know much more. They know everything about your solution already before they even engage with you. So if you crop up with the same old boring questions everybody else is asking and just ask what keeps you up at night, it just doesn't cut it anymore, right? And these questions, in our methodology, we call it striker questions, but that's a side note. There really need to be questions that generate new needs in the mind of the prospects and the buyer, things that they haven't thought of before, things that they haven't appreciated before. And those are the things that really are required. And especially when you say transforming the sales organization, but that's difficult, right? Because people hate change, right? They don't want to move. So why should I get out of my comfort zone if I've done it all those years? So how can these sales teams start to move away from these outdated methods? You said transformation. Your job is to transform the sales organization. Obviously, in our organization, we always deal with that. But how? Give us your take on how do you best do that?
There needs to be a process of unlearning on some level, right? There needs to be and I, when I speak of unlearning, I speak of unlearning at the sales executive level, at the buyer level, at the organizational level, and I'll give the example of a mental model that we see often of, we're going to build a sales organization. We're going to have hunters and we're going to have farmers. And I'm like, that's the most outdated sales model I've ever seen. And if you look at farming in 2025, the farming and agriculture industry has transformed itself in a way that it is not what farming looked like 30 years ago. And I think, I like to think of it, at the highest level, like what is that mental model of what a sales model that is adaptive in 2025 is a combination of someone who's a rainmaker, someone who is a corporate athlete, and someone who has an AI thought partner that they know how to leverage so that they can attune to the sales environment that they are walking into. I've seen sales enablement strategies, rolled out where it's just cookie cutter. We're going to rinse and repeat. And it's like, our customers are not a rinse and repeat approach. Yes, there are foundational tools that you can introduce to a sales organization that are important. And how do you help the organization attune to the different buyers' needs, attune to how they're thinking about their business and where they're going. So there needs to be an unlearning process, but there also needs to be new mental models that we incorporate in helping our organizations transform. And that means letting go of the past. And if you look at sales organizations, like they're gonna continue to focus on the same way they measure their sales teams. They're going to, the same way they would train their sales teams. Like, it's like, well, if we just do a once a year event and we say we've trained them, checkbox, we've done this, that's not transformation, right? Transformation is an everyday thing. It's building systems and habits around your organization. And you've got to start to think about it as you're providing new scaffolding for them to grow and transform and build confidence with the vast tech stack that we've thrown at them. And what I'm seeing is organizations want to keep the ways of how we've done things in the past, just add all these new tools and ways of thinking, and there's just too much, right? How do you get focused execution when there's just too much on your plate? And the biggest challenge for sales leaders today is how do you bring a level of focused execution for your teams so that they really understand how to go to market with confidence and a sense of mastery. And that's an art, and that takes time.
And that sense of mastery really requires that mindset of ongoing progress, constantly developing, and developing sales skills. Takes more than just, as you said, just attending a training session. How can organizations create these opportunities for deliberate practice, in your opinion? And why is this so critical for building high-performing teams?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I'll start with, I come from a sports background. I was a competitive swimmer growing up. I trained 30 to 40 hours a week. I have, embedded in my DNA this idea of practice. It's foundational to how I look at the world. And practice in the sports world is about skills development, but skill development is breaking down those skills into smaller skills, right? So and they would refer to those as drills. And so if and I think we can learn a lot from sport and incorporate that into how we build sales programs. If you look at a Michael Jordan or a Kobe Bryant, like they're constantly practicing these fundamental skills and they're going back to the basics every single day. Yeah. And it's not a concept that I think we have embraced in the selling world. There's been this kind of, in some circles, there's this fake it till you make it. And I'm like, yes, and right? Like you can't expect high performance from a sales executive if they don't have these foundational building blocks. And it's that only comes with practice. It comes with coaching. It comes with mentoring, and it comes with a series of constant feedback loops. And if we look at kind of the historical training models, we do a sales course, one and done, right? Where's the coaching? Where's the skill reinforcement? Where are the feedback loops? I think that's the missing piece in how organizations need to think about sales transformation, right? And if you have read a book called The Talent Code by Daniel Coyle, Sure. He talks about myelin, and myelin becomes like what myelin is really it's something. As you practice, you're wrapping around your neurons and reinforcing them with with neural pathways where you can um, these skills become automatic and kind of second nature, and that comes from practice, right? That comes from failing fast. I had a sales executive last week. He had a big customer presentation, and he's my rock star sales guy, and he bombed. He completely bombed, and that's okay, right? That's okay, because it sucks, but I was there to give him some strong coaching, right? It's like how could you have done this differently? Like just bringing awareness to that sales rep, and so it's important to teach the fundamentals of selling, and there's a lot of different skills. And how do you then bring these feedback loops when things don't go the way you planned, right? And how do you help them make those connections so that they are able to iterate and I think improve the next time they go out, and bring that level of preparation that's required to execute. So I think there's always lessons to be learned in failure, and I think for this sales rep that I'm referring to, it was a humbling moment, but the ability to have made those connections for him to see where he could have done things differently and how he would have gotten different outcomes. That was a powerful coaching moment. And so I look for those as a sales leader. I think we don't give enough feedback to our people, and that is the secret sauce, in my opinion.
It's so interesting. I've been talking recently a lot to obviously through recording podcasts and so forth, and many of the great sales leaders are actually competitive athletes in their former life.
Yeah.
They have taken so many elements of that part of their life. I mean, I actually come from long distance triathlon, but the competitive swimmers, at least triathlon breaks it up a little bit on the different sports. But the swimmers, they were like always very, very precise, always drills, breaking it down into little chunks, just as you have described. And it is practice, practice, practice. And I couldn't agree more with you. Those typical sales training models is, okay, let's have client meetings, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week. And then once a year we do sales training. Should be the other way around, obviously, practice, 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 and then perform, practice, practice, and so on. So, and thank God AI can give us now the ability to scale this. But I think also the human side of the coaching piece that you have described is critical to it too.
It is. It is.
And I'm sure your organization will go through a really good transformation and will yield those results that you desire.
At the end of the day, the work is the work. You've got to do the work, right? And I think sometimes people want these magic pills of, well, I just need to do X, Y, Z. It's like, no, you need to do it X, Y, Z 1,000 times. And work is the work. Like, you need to sign up for that, full stop.
Yeah. And is it pretty always? No, it's not. No. And it's hard. And it's the stuff that you don't see.
That's right.
That makes it count. I couldn't agree more with you. I want to go back to what you said initially at the start of this recording, is the idea of bringing neuroscience for high performance. I know you touched a little bit on it while we were just talking about high performance, but share your thoughts a little bit more detailed on this topic.
Yeah. I think neuroscience is debunking a lot of the theories that we've grown up with in how we think about performance, how we think about learning, and so it's for me, it's just given me a lens to look at and question my biases, right? And when I'm in a meeting and this reference of how we should do things. Neuroscience has really challenged me in thinking like these playbooks actually don't make sense if you put a lens of neuroscience. And it's looking at learning, it's looking at how our brains work, and our brains are the engines to build connection. Our brains are the engines to help people make these mental shifts from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. It's helping the teams that you're leading really tap into the power of how they're leveraging their knowledge, and how and challenging them, right? Like it's so neuroscience, and I referenced Daniel Coyle's book, The Talent Code. I think a lot of what he's shared is really foundational to thinking about how we develop curated learning strategies to help our sales teams evolve, and how do you help your sales teams get out of that fight, flight, freeze way of thinking. And I think when we talk about change does drive you right into a fight, flight, freeze response. And if I have that knowledge as a sales leader, I can build in my communication strategy a plan to make sure that my teams don't go into fight, flight, freeze, right? And so if I'm anticipating that they're going to be resistant to this change that I'm bringing into an organization, I've anticipated it, and I've put a plan around how I'm going to get them to be in this I think creative mind brain state by with a strong communication strategy, with that communicate often, have those touch points. So if you're looking at it from a learning perspective, how can you provide this ongoing daily sound bites of knowledge that they can go test and practice, so they're always in that confident creative state as opposed to this survival brain state. And I think that's probably a really simple example of how you start to think about neuroscience in helping your organization make these really massive shifts. Like the pace of acceleration in our world is extreme, and so we have an organization that is in this constant survival brain state, and the best leaders are able to help shift that energy and shift it quickly, so that all this energy is not being wasted on how am I going to protect myself.
Yeah. And it's interesting how you describe this when you and obviously when you think about taking what you said, and when you think about hiring new people, for example, hiring a sales team, for example, that plays into it too.
Yes.
Do you hire for skill or for will? Do you hire for mindset or for skill set?
I think it's a combination, and if I we need to continue to bring revenues in. We need to continue to drive outcomes. So I could go bring a whole sales force that are high on will, and that's going to take me 2 to 3 years to go build the skill. So I need a combination of skill and will. And what I am looking for in a sales executive is their willingness to learn, right? Their willingness to be fearless and try new things. And I think if they have that in them, in their DNA, I can work with that. Right. And it's those salespeople who say, you know what, like, I'm just going to continue doing things the way I've already done them. They're working for me. I'm like, okay, if you're okay with 100% of quota achievement, then fine. Like I prefer 300%. So if you're good with just like mediocrity, then great, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm looking for elite athletes. I'm looking for the NBA championship team who's going to win those 3 rings in the next 3 years. And both are okay, right? Like if you're good with 100%, that may be good for the culture that you're in. And I want to lead elite athletes, and I really think about my organization as a team of corporate athletes, and I try to institute some of those ideas and ways of thinking in my leadership staff.
Fabulous. Sonia, we're almost at the end of our recording. I have one last question for you, like I ask on every single podcast. What is, in your opinion, what are the top 3 qualities of elite salespeople these days? And if you can even prioritize them for me, number 1 in importance, 2, and number 3 of those top 3 qualities of elite salespeople, what would they be?
I think I would start with curiosity, and the curiosity is a really important skill and way of living your life. And what I think about that is, are you constantly pushing the boundaries to think of new ways of looking at a problem, and are you constantly helping your customers through your curious nature, by asking them thought-provoking questions to get them to reimagine what's possible. And you can only reimagine when you have curiosity as at the core of how you look at problems.
Right.
So I guess the second one that I would think about is, I think it's really important for a sales executive and sales leader to be fearless, right? And through being fearless, you're able to adapt to new situations more quickly, and you're able to really kind of push the boundaries of your comfort zone. And not only are you doing that for yourself, but I think if you can do that for your organization, it starts to challenge the status quo of how we've always done things. And a modern sales executive needs that quality of fearlessness in how they look at their business. And then I think finally, what I think is really important is become a student of strategy. And too often I see people who confuse strategy and tactics, and being a student of strategy means that you have really kind of looked at the landscape, you've attuned to the people in that landscape, and you're able to think 5 steps ahead. Like, what are those 5 positions that are going to set the winning conditions for me? And you have options, right? Too often, I see sales executives, they're just thinking about, okay, well, what's the next step?
Yeah.
And that's important. But if you have that kind of more, I think, expanded view of the different positions that are available to you, you're going to make wiser decisions. And so I think that those are 3 really important qualities in a sales executive.
Absolutely love it. Curiosity, fearlessness, and student of. I can't even write my writing right now because it was so good.
Student of strategy, yes.
Student of strategy, of course. Progressing in all 3 areas all the time, I think is really key. Sonia, you've been an amazing guest with fabulous insights. Thank you so much. I know our listeners very much appreciate your thought leadership on these topics. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. It was. I love these conversations, and I think let's continue to transform this this craftsmanship of sales. I think it's a pretty exciting time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. 2 calls to action, my lovely listeners. Go to the B2B Sales Trends.com site, subscribe and share with people who you think this episode would be helpful to, as well as go to our YouTube channel, B2B Sales Trends Podcast. Go to globalperformancegroup.com if you wish to check out our win rates calculator if you want to compare your current win rates and how it ranks within your industry. And until the next time, look after yourself, look after your loved ones, and of course, your B2B customers. All the best. Bye-bye.